What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Tavern. Before you recruit some new minions for the battle, let me welcome you to episode 23 of Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 23, we're going to be taking a look back at a new patch that was just dropped earlier today. We have a community question that we sent out to you guys that focuses on the current state of the game in regards to the Murloc tribe and how you guys would look to balance it. Some interesting results on that front. But before we get into the news tonight and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank anyone who has joined us in the tavern tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar and Ed. We kind of got, I wouldn't say, necessarily a surprise patch, knowing that, the expansion looms. But,
Mhm.
we never really, wake up the day of a podcast and be like, oh, you mean there's a patch today? It's just like,
Yeah, I had this kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, no one was expecting it, especially on a Thursday.
Mhm.
Like people just don't expect patches on Thursdays. So yeah, no, it was we were all set to do some Murloc bashing, and then all of a sudden we have actual stuff to talk about alongside it. So I'm
Imagine
kind of
that.
excited.
Absolutely. So before we talk about the Murloc trend yet again. Let's talk about our weeks in Battlegrounds. So it's been a couple of weeks since our last recording. 2 weeks, in fact. And not to say, Ed, there's been a lot of ups and downs for me within Battlegrounds. On the upside, I did set a new high peak rating over the past few weeks at 6668. But as of today's recording, I'm currently sitting at 6585. So took a little bit of a swing back the other direction. But something that's kind of throwing me off right now is, due to this new patch that we got today, these stats have not been updated on HS Replay. So we'll see whether or not there's going to be any issues getting those stats uploaded since, when you did go in Bob's Buddy, whenever there was one of the new minions, or new heroes wouldn't recognize the type, and then it wouldn't give you any stats either. So that
That
is
does appear to be fixed now.
okay. Good to know. But anyways, it's been particularly rough this past week. I know I've played at least 20 games. My average placement this week has not been good. It's been around 4.6. And a lot of that is just based off the fact that I've been seeing quite a bit of 6th and 7th place finishes whenever I've been in the lobbies. So of course that has had a pretty negative impact on my rating. And then even when I am winning, it's primarily been these 4th place finishes. So I'm definitely losing more than I'm gaining just because of, where I'm at currently within the lobby. So fortunately not as many lobby wins per se to kind of balance out those
Mhm.
lower end finishes. But, we're chipping away at it. It seems like every week I am setting a new peak rating. And I don't know how long that's going to continue, but as long as it's happening, I'm all for it. And I've actually been streaming quite a bit of Battlegrounds as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a brutal 2 weeks since our last one. So as we talked about last time, I hit my new peak at just under 6,200. Um, Within a week, I had tilted and crashed so hard I was down at 5,600. Um, maybe 55. I can't remember where my low point was. Um, just because I was playing on my laptop and I don't have deck tracker on that.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm not gonna install a deck tracker on my Mac. For the very few times I actually play it. But I am back up above 6,000, 6K now. Grinded back, forcing Murlocs. That's truly what it's doing. It's just forcing Murlocs.
Which is interesting because in most of my games I haven't been forcing Murlocs, but I still think up to this point, Ed, though, um, I know, like, on our prior episode, I was telling you, like, I hadn't really been seeing that many Murlocs in regards to them being available in, the minion pool.
Mhm.
That has definitely changed pretty
Yes.
drastically over the past 2 weeks because now I am seeing them in the majority of my games to be playable. There have still been a couple of odd games where only one or no players decide to actually go that direction with their,
Mhm.
war band. But for the most part, like when Murlocs are available, usually the top two slots are going to whoever is playing them.
Yep. So I've two ways I go about this. I try and force Murlocs, and if by turn 5 or 6 I don't have decent Murlocs, I just go for pirates. Um, because pirates or mid game is very strong. So I try and go for pirates just to get a top four. That's basically what I've been doing, and it seems to be working out for me. And I'm not saying I do that every single time,
Mhm.
because obviously sometimes I play, dragons or mechs or whatever. But that's ideally what I'm looking for. But yeah, Murlocs are, yeah, they're a thing.
Yeah, and the thing about that too is just the fact that it seems like any time, well, not any time, most of the times when a particular tribe becomes a problem, Murlocs seem to be at the core of the issue. So what I wanted to do tonight is, we sent out a community poll in regards to how you would like to see them tweak Murlocs. I want to talk about what has essentially caused another uprising of this tribe, how we would go about actually fixing it, and kind of just like go from there. Okay, so recent things that have happened that have basically led us down this path. We had the introduction of the Amalgadon here in the prior patch, which is the first minion to have the all type, so it counts as any tribe. And because of the introduction of Amalgadon, it gave Murlocs through Primal Fin Lookout another discovery option. So, while Amalgadon by itself might not necessarily be like the biggest stat wise, the swing value potential is there for him, and just having an extra Murloc to be able to be discovered through Lookout is definitely a fairly sizable buff that on paper you really wouldn't think about. And then outside of that, also with the recent changes, Beast got brought back pretty substantially with the changes to Goldrin, moving Goldrin up to Tavern 6. We also had like the Macaw changes, moving Macaw up to 3. So like these Death Rattle based Beast builds aren't really seeing any play nowadays. So just kind of got into the point where you're primarily seeing like Divine Shield builds. You're seeing the Murlocs who just end up high rolling most of the time with Divine Shield, Poison, whatever other fixtures. Every once in a while you still have like Big Demon, which does pretty well in like the non-Murloc lobbies. Pirates have been doing, I think, okay, but it's still having to find like the right pieces in order to really gain a substantial enough amount of buffs for them as you continue to get attacks in. So right now, the prior episode, I'd say I was seeing Murlocs maybe in like 30% of my games. Like I would say on average in regards to them being in the tribe pool. Since then, I've played 20, I'd say maybe in 4 or 5 of the games that they've not been present at all. So pretty big turnaround on that front.
Yeah.
But it just seems like at the end of the day, there's just so many good Murloc cards, and while yes, it might be true that a lot of people are going that direction, and that there will be a lot of competition in that regard, that doesn't necessarily always mean that it's going to lessen the impact that the tribe in itself is going to have, because even though they're all competing for the same cards, they're still able to get some pretty decent scaling in, even as you're trying to get, whatever warband you have going for you.
Exactly. Like, you the other thing going for Murloc players is the reason so many people can go Murlocs is because you buy them and then you sell them. Like you buy, buff, sell. Like you're not keeping generally those cold light seers or felfins in on your board. You're using it to buff, throwing it back into the pool so you can get it again. So like, and the ones that are generally sticking around are real low levels. Yeah, you know what I mean. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking like the tokens and all those tier 3 and below uh, um, Murlocs, which there are plenty of going around. Those are the ones that stick on the board, and then the buff ones are doing the real business there, and that's why so many people can run Murlocs at once. What really it boils down to is tier 5 and tier 6, is who gets lucky enough there.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of options too. Like that's the thing. It's just more and more about options, options, options. When we start talking about balancing and stuff like that, I'll dive deeper into what I think needs to be done. Um, because I think there's one clear cut problem with Murlocs, but yeah, they're in a very very strong place, very strong place.
All right, so let's take a look at the community poll that we threw out this week. So the options that we gave people in regards to balance ideas, we gave them 3 options, and then like one that was like open to, them to reply with anything basically. Most of which were all in agreement in regards to like the other reply. Basically, we were looking at Primal Fin, Lookout, moving that from tier 5 to tier 6. The other option being removing Amalgadon from the minion pool, which that was one that ended up winning the poll by a very small margin. The other ones were removing Poison as an adapt option through Megasaur. And then the common trend in the other, which was one that we asked people to reply with, was to just outright remove Murlocs entirely from the game. Which, okay, like I understand the frustration, Zed, and why people are so upset with Murlocs, just because they seem to be the problem, the trouble tribe essentially, or the problem child in this case for Battlegrounds. I don't think we're going to be in a position where we ever see a tribe outright removed because of the existence of the minion pool in itself.
That will never happen.
Right.
They're not just going to remove Murlocs from the game, because if you were I can't remember what exactly was so broken about them, but do you remember Murlocs when the game first came out?
Mm-hmm.
Like Murlocs were oppressive. They just were. They had to. They were. It was you had to force them more than you do now. And that's without the Felfin Navigator. So yeah, it was. They didn't do it then. They're not doing it now. Now they could probably make some changes, which I think they'll do, but not get rid of it completely. That's just an overreaction.
Yeah, because there are a number of players out there that do love to play Murlocs.
Correct.
Yeah, Crypt probably being the primary example, for sure. But for me, looking back, like the Amalgadon was a twofold problem, as we mentioned, because it's another Murloc, it's another discovery option. So to me, that definitely seems like the most sensible way of going about making any sort of balance change. Now, I do want to note before we talk about the patch notes from today, there's nothing in there about anything Murloc, in regards to like minion changes or anything like that. So don't expect us to mention that when we're discussing patch 18.0. But I wasn't like necessarily disappointed in the fact that there weren't any Murloc changes on that front. But it just seems like it seems like every other patch we're really starting to see the changes to like a specific type of tribe. So I don't know if it's going to be the direction of, okay, we're going to tone Murlocs down, or we're going to look to buff another specific composition, which technically is the way that they went with this patch. Uh,
Mhm.
but looking at it, I know you for the longest time have looked at poison being like the biggest beneficiary to Murloc as a tribe and what makes them as potent as they are. So when you're looking at the possibility of removing poison, are you looking at it just from a mechanic standpoint altogether? So I'm talking about both the Toxfin and Megasaur, or are you only looking at it via like the adapt options out there?
I would say just take it out of the adapt options. Um, Still keep the Murloc that gives poison, because like yeah, you that's an advantage to Murlocs. You know, but I don't think poison is the big issue right now. I have a different issue with it, and I don't even have a problem with Amalgadon now. Even like truly thinking about it, Amalgadon being discovered at tier 5, while that can be big, I mean, there are other ways you can. I mean, you have Shifter Xeris. You have what is it? Shredder.
Mm-hmm.
Sneed Shredder that will drop a random legendary, and that's at tier 5. So you could get a Malgadon, you could get a boat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's at tier 5. So I don't really have an issue with that. I think the biggest issue is Bran.
Okay.
And like being able to double buff up, make them the beefiest characters ever so much early, getting double Megasaurs, um, at tier 5, and basically being like, okay, I got Divine Shield and Poison. You can handle one of those as an opponent. But if they just happen to get that, then you know you're done. I think by moving Brand to tier 6 and leaving everything else the same with Murlocs, it would really cut down on the Murloc comps. Because you wouldn't be getting all these double Megasaurs or getting all these, you know, crazy Amalgadons or crazy Begurgles. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. Getting double Primal Fins and doing all that. I think Brand should get moved to tier 6. And I think that would really, you could still get it. It's just much harder to do. Um, which in turn would make it a lot less like viable
Mhm.
to do so. So I think that's the way to go for it.
Yeah, I think at this point, when you look at Amalgadon being like the newer entry into Murlocs, I wouldn't say that we've seen as many like systematic issues with that particular minion when you can compare him to, say, like one of the other recent additions that has since been retired in the Holy Mackerel. Because the Holy
Mm-hmm.
Mackerel would always have the bouncing Divine Shields, so even if you went for the counterplay, whether it was through like the Nefarian hero power or using the unstable ghoul, if you had two mackerels, it the counterplay wouldn't matter. So yeah, that was definitely a bigger issue in this case, where you don't have to worry about that with the Amalgadon. But I think from like a design point of view, having like an amalgam, which yes can like get factored into just about any type of composition, is great. It's a good tool
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to make any sort of adjustment that you need to make should you have to make like a drastic change in whatever your warband is. But it's also at the cost of basically making things a lock for murlocs in themselves as well. So I think if you're looking at like the battle cry options, you either, as you mentioned, you move Bran up to tier 6,
Hmm.
Or maybe they just retire the Megasaur. So you're only able to get, your poison through Toxvin.
I think that would. No, I don't think that would work because you would still need to get Divine Shield somehow. Um, because that's really their only true like consistent win condition. Um, like I'd say right now in this meta, Divine Shield is probably more important than Poison. Um, because one Divine Shield will nullify pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, big demons too. Um, and really kind of puts a damper on mechs. So it really is something that I think they need to keep the Megasaur because it's truly their only win condition type of card. Like they need to get this to actually win anything. Because without that in the game, I don't see them winning really ever.
Fair point. Either way, though, it's going to be based off of one of the battle cries, whether it's through Bran or through Megasaur. Um, and on that point, too, like, let's say we do remove Poison as an adapt option. Technically, that would also remove it from Amalgadon as well, since it shares
Hmm.
the same type of mechanic.
That is true, but you could give it poison just like you could any other Murloc.
Mm-hmm.
So
So a few different
uh,
options out there. We'll see whether or not the dev team is going to take a closer look.
I
Uh,
did I did actually message Celestalon today.
as did
Um,
I.
and so he responded. I brought up the point, and I get why they didn't do it. Did you see this?
I did, yes.
Okay, so Megasaur is a beast, but is available when beasts aren't allowed in the game. And the reason they gave is because otherwise it's the most useless of the useless cards at tier 6. If you know, like you can only if like oh yeah, well Murlocs with no Megasaur because beasts aren't in there is just not a thing. Now I'd
Mm-hmm.
be okay with that, another warband where we wouldn't have to work with Murlocs, but that's kind of their thinking, and that's what also leads me to believe that they would not just get rid of Megasaur. Um, but yeah, I was just like, wait, Megasaur's a beast. Why is it in there when there's no beasts? So
Yeah. But anyways, we'll see what direction they're going to take moving forward. But they did take a pretty clear direction with today's patch. But before that, since you spoke of his name, we've had 2 weeks to come up with our worst situations in Battlegrounds for our blame Celestalon moment. And I had a couple of options I could have gone with, but I'm going to go with the one that definitely irked me the most, even though it was a win. So I tried Hook Tusk for the first time since the nerf.
okay,
It was a pretty good game. I'm not gonna lie. I have it on my Twitch channel. It is highlighted. It was a second place game. Here's how it went down. Okay, so on turn 1, I ended up buying a Tide Hunter. It's like, okay, I'll remove the Scout, and I got a Swabby off of it. I was like, okay, cool. We'll just lower the hero power cost. Win round 1. All right, turn 2. Pick up an Alley Cat. I removed the Tabby, and through the hero power, I got another Alley Cat. So I was like, all right. We got more board presence. I'm all for that. And getting a token drop with the hero power, definitely good case scenario. So won that round, no problem. So I tiered up on turn 3. I bought a Scallywag. I removed that Tabby that I got from that prior Alley Cat. And I got another Alley Cat. So here I am, turn 3. I have a triple on board at tier 2 that I got primarily through the hero power, because I got 2 out of the 3 Alley Cats through the hero power. And my options were like a Shifter Xeris. I'm trying to remember what the other one. It was one of the demon buff cards. And then the other option was a Hangry Dragon. So it's like, you know what? It's really early on. I'm gonna go with the Hangry Dragon, just because like at that point I'm on a win streak. We'll see how far we can take this. So fast forward, and things are going pretty good. I got another Scallywag. I bought a cannon. So I was basically getting 4 pains with the cannon minimum each attack. And I was able to level fairly aggressive because I kept winning. So that early triple that I got, where I ended up picking the Hanger Dragon on turn 3, just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So on turn 7, I was able to go up to 4. I won again, so I'm like, you know what? F it. Let's go up. So I immediately went to 5 on that following turn. And then on turn 9, I tripled the Scallywag off the hero power. And since I was at 5, I got a tier 6 minion, which I got Calicos. So here I am, turn 9, with the Calicos on board. I'm feeling pretty damn good. So that's when I started to cycle the battle cries. And this is where I started to transition over to a dragon, warband, because Hanger Dragon had been a staple already. It was already pretty beefy because I had won, at this point, 9 straight rounds. And so at the time, I basically was battle crying for the Bronze Warden, the Hangry Dragon, Calicos, Herald of Flame, as well as the Twilight Emissary. So feeling pretty good. So I keep winning, and I got up to turn number 14, which was my first loss of this game. And this was my first loss, and we were down to 2 people in the lobby, myself and one other player, who, of course, as you would come to expect based off of our earlier conversation, was running Murlocs. So it's like, okay, I already had an unstable ghoul in hand. I was like, I don't know how progressive Murlocs are. So I was like, you know what? Let me just play it. I'll see what he has. And then if I have to adjust further beyond that, I'll see what I can do. So I play it, and I lose to him on this turn. He has 5 of his minions with Divine Shield, with Poison. They have Wind Fury. And of course, he has a Bran and a Begurgle for his other minions. And I basically only needed to beat him one time because he was at like 4 health in order for me to come out with the lobby win. And unfortunately, because of, his adapt, him having, the Megasaurs, I was not able to beat him in the 3 rounds that I had to make any sort of adjustment. So it didn't matter if I had the ghoul. It didn't matter how beefy my minions were, because at the time, my board on the weaker end was anywhere between like 22 attack, 24 health, to up to like 50-52 on a high end with the Hangry Dragon, I believe. And it was all for naught because of what I was going up against. I wasn't really getting any counterplay, which would have just been me having to mirror what my opponent was doing. So I wasn't getting the Murloc options available to purchase. So at that point, I was like, all right, maybe I can luck into a Nadina or 2, and, that will be my saving grace. Those Nadinas never happened. And I just ended the game, and I'm like, really? Like, you've got to be kidding me. Having a perfect game spoiled, because that would have been my first perfect game had I not lost those rounds, because I was at 40 health entering, turn 14, which has never happened, let alone with a character who I keep hearing is trash tier now because of the hero power change to it just being random. So having, like, that succession of getting a triple off of the hero power pretty much exclusively, to getting an early Hanger Dragon, to winning 13 rounds straight and having a ton of stats on said early triple, and then to lose in that fashion, man, that definitely hurt me to the core.
Oh, that's way more in depth than mine. Way more in depth than mine. But I feel you. Mine involves Eudora.
Okay.
And no Murlocs. This is just luck on my part. I only got 2 digs off, and you'll understand why. First dig, Righteous Protector.
Nice.
Second dig, Zephyrus. Yep. Possibly the 2 worst cards to get. I actually had to play the 2/2 Zephyrus
Ouch.
because I had to try and get a better card for the tier up just to survive that round.
Right.
So that was a thing. So I blame you, Celestalon, for that.
Yeah, I had a game kind of like that earlier with Eudora too. I did make it a little bit further, but like I ended up getting like a Houndmaster with the first dig. I didn't have any beast on board. Of course, I was able to get one the turn after. Go figure. The one after that was like a floated watcher. I was just like, no synergy. So I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
I have yet to get one of those like God Eudora digs. Like, you get the golden brand or something like that. You're just like, jackpot.
Right.
But I still do well with Eudora. Eudora is still really, 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 really strong. That's another one I was surprised didn't get touched this time. But
yeah, maybe next patch. Not in the cards for patch 18.0 that dropped today. So let's talk about today's patch. What is going on in regards to the Battlegrounds as we prep for the release of Skolo Academy, which is set to fully unlock August 6th in regards to like the new cards and whatnot. All right, so starting from the top end, we got a new hero, Mr. Bigglesworth, who has a passive hero power, Kel'Thuzad's Kitty. So when a player dies, you get to discover a minion from their warband, and that minion keeps any enchantments that it has. Now, it's worth noting that if you have perks, you do have early access to this hero. The hero will fully unlock on August 13th if you do not have the Battlegrounds perks. So I know I had an opportunity to play the new hero. Did you manage to see the new hero outside of just being in your lobby?
No, I haven't gotten Mr. Bigglesworth yet.
Okay.
Sadly. I want to try it.
All right, well, I guess I'll talk about the hero then really quick. So a couple of things to note here. When you discover the minion when someone is knocked out, you cannot tell whether or not the minion has a Divine Shield, a Taunt, Wind Fury, Death Rattle, Poison. You'll see the stats. So, like, the stats will be, like, green or whatever color. So you'll know, like, it has been buffed to an extent, but you just won't know what enchantments it actually has. So that's only for that. You will know if the card is golden because of the border. Okay. It's just primarily, the flavor text is what you won't be seeing. So it's also worth noting that if you do discover a triple, when you put it in play, you do get to discover a minion from, the Tavern tier up. So very similar to, any, like, the Eudora triple, essentially. So I have to say, like, a really, really interesting mechanic. Kind of reminiscent of, like, what we saw with Test, except this one revolves around a player dying, and I only got to try Bigglesworth in one game today. I've seen them in most of the lobbies I've been in today to varying success. The game that I played, I ended up getting second. And I didn't keep track of, like, all my discoveries. All I know is my first discovery of the game was something that I wouldn't use for the tribe that I was playing at the time. And then, in one of the later rounds, there were 3 players that ended up getting knocked out within the same turn. So then entering that next turn, I got to discover 3 minion options, and out of those 3, I ended up getting at least 2 golds. One was through directly discovering a gold. The second one was getting a minion, like a normal minion, which would have been a third for the double that I had. So if you want to talk about potential power swings, this is really a hero that is kind of mediocre early game because you're not seeing a ton of people getting knocked out early unless they say like disconnect or they rage quit or whatever. But the late game potential is pretty significant. It's just a matter of, what you're getting, but having it being a discovery definitely makes it more potent than it just being completely random, kind of like what they had done with like the hook tusk change. You're muted, but
I like this change. I like this hero. I think I don't know how to feel about it.
Mhm.
Like how like if it's gonna be. It could, in my mind, be super powerful. It could be trash or anywhere in the middle. We need more stats. We need more people to play with it because it has the possibility of having the biggest swing turns in the game. More so than Eudora. Because with it, like later on, you would discover a gold minion, not you know just get one at random.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something that, yeah, I'm very interested to test out and see where it lies on the thing.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have a good idea by our next recorded once we have a little bit more data on hand. But I definitely enjoyed that particular turn, though. I will note, though, if a lot of people are getting knocked out in one turn, definitely do not take your time figuring out what cards you're taking because, Boomer APM can definitely play a factor in that turn. So outside of that, we got a couple of changes in regards to the minion pool. So they removed 2 of the Menagerie pieces, both the Zubat and the Menagerie Magician. So both of those are gone and have been replaced by a different kind of Menagerie minion. So we have the Menagerie Mug, which is a tier 2 minion, which has 2 attack and 2 health. And the battle cry gives 3 random friendly minions of different minion types +1/+1. And of course, the stats would be doubled in regards to the triple. And then we have the Menagerie Jug, which is a tier 4. Also 3 attack and 3 health, which gives 3 random friendly minions of different minion types +2/+2. Okay, so not like they're basically like the same stats as what you would have had with the Zubat and the Magician. The key difference here is the inclusion of pirates, mech minions, as well as demons. So you're not getting pigeonholed into only being able to run like the Beast, Dragon, and the Murloc, which is what you would have had via the Magician and the Zubat. So essentially, at this point now, Menagerie can be any sort of combination. So, for the longest time, you would kind of see like, okay, like if you were running Menagerie, you would look for like the Cave Hydra, or like we'll say, I'm trying to think like what else would have been one of the key pieces. Like really any of the Murlocs that you would have had poison, or like a Herald of Flame, or a Bronze Warden, and things like that. And then those would be, the cards that you would look to buff via your Zubat and the Magician. Now it can just be anything. Which is going to be interesting because, in hindsight, like this could maybe make like Queen Wagtoggle a bit more beneficial now that she's not being tied to specific classes. But it also, you have to factor in, all right, how many different types of minions should I be running now where you don't want to necessarily be buffing a specific minion in your group? Like, I don't know if it's going to be a case of you're primarily still going to be sticking to the 3, or if there's going to be another minion out there to really soak up some of those hits, because I definitely see a situation arising where even if you are playing three minion types, maybe you have an Amalgadon, and that wouldn't necessarily be one of the worst minions out there to
Exactly.
be covered with one of the tribes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's this was just needed to be done, because like we're probably gonna get another warband, not right now, but soon ish, probably in the next 6 months. We'll get another one, and you just have to kind of include it all. Um, and not just pigeonhole it. Otherwise, you got to start adding buff cards for all of them. So
Mhm.
this was just, we're gonna add these in, get rid of the Zubat and the Menagerie Magician, and just nip it in the bud from the get go. So yeah, I like this.
Yeah, the other part of it too is when you would look at those prior menagerie pieces, since we do have, the minion pool and it does rotate, there were situations where only two of the three would be active, so you wouldn't really be getting the full
Mm-hmm.
benefit out of the card either. Now, where in this case, with these newer minions, you don't have to worry about that at all,
Nope.
as long as you have the three different minion types all together through your warband. So in itself, probably not going to be like uh I don't know like how potent this is gonna be. We have seen Menagerie doing okay. I don't know if this is necessarily going to make like the biggest impact or like rush it to the top. But maybe this will keep it closer towards being able to really compete to clear like the Divine Shields with like a double cleave type setup with the Hydra, or the Foe Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really had too much of an opportunity to play these uh, new minions outside of just using them as just like general buffers early on. So I haven't gone like full Menagerie as of yet to fully test them to see how much you're able to scale throughout the course of the game here.
I've used the mug. No, not the mug. I got the jug, the 2-2-1 with Murlocs. No, not with Murlocs. This was with a dragon. When I had on his name, tier 6 dragon.
Calicos?
There it is, Caligos. I had Caligos, so I'm like, well, this is just the perfect, you know, perfect like card to throw in there with Caligos.
Mm-hmm.
You buff the dragon, and then you buff all the dragons. So yeah, dude did that. So yeah, no, it's definitely a nice change. So good call. You done good, Celestalon. Sort of.
Until you do us dirty,
Yes,
then we don't speak to you for like 2 weeks.
exactly.
But anyways, that's pretty much it in regards to Battlegrounds this week. Hopefully we see an update to Bob's Buddy here fairly shortly, so we can get our updated sets and HS replay. And just hoping to get back to where I was at that peak to see if we can keep climbing. Because who knows? Like, I'm not going to rule 7K out of the realm of possibility at this point, knowing that, you get on a good run, but, then you just bring it right back down. I don't
Mm, yeah, no.
know.
I'm just hoping to catch up to you. I got a ways to go.
Well, you'll just have to make a couple of nights of good runs there. Like, it could happen.
Oh yeah, it could happen, and I need to not like. I got so tilted.
You got so tilted, and then you kept playing. You went against
And
your
I
own
kept
advice.
playing, and I just kept tanking and tanking and tanking, and it was just I couldn't get above 6th place. It was horrible. I needed to quit, but yeah.
Sometimes pride gets in the way. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I definitely had a few nights of that where I was like 6, 6, 7, 6, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, you can just switch over to like your EU account on Hearthstone,
Hmm.
so you don't have to constantly be switching between like different accounts.
I mean, yeah, but I only play Hearthstone really on 2 accounts, even though I did unlock them on more than that.
Yeah.
But
So,
anyways, let's go ahead and close out the tavern for tonight, since that basically covers everything that happened this week. So anyways, guys, please do us a favor, head on over to iTunes, write and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Obviously, not a whole ton of like battleground specific podcasts out there, so let us know if there is anything in particular you would like to see us incorporate into the show, because we are always looking for new content to produce for you guys. And of course, we're always looking to improve the show as well. But Ed, please go ahead and let our patrons know how they can contact our show.
all right. So you can reach us through email at taverntalespodcast@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at taverntaleshs. We do stream this live on Twitch at twitch.tv/taverntaleshs every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. We do have a Discord where you can come talk Hearthstone with us at discord.me/OWLN show. You can contact me personally on Twitter, and that's at Ednar83, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, you can follow me over on Twitter. That would be at Tumblely Drunk. And then every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I've been streaming Battlegrounds at twitch.tv/Tumblely Drunk. And, if you guys want to go check out my Blame Celestalon story in action, again, it is available on my Twitch stream as one of the highlights. So you can see me absolutely rage after losing for the first time in 14 rounds. After I say, I don't want to say anything, but this is going pretty good. Just because, like, I knew the guy was running Murloc, so Celestalon had to do me dirty in that regard, so not cool, dude. But anyways, you guys take care, have a good night, and we'll see you guys back in the tavern next week. Good
All
night.
right. See you guys.